Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Hanging Out for a Living. Today I'm sitting down with someone who's not just flipping the script on business ownership, she's actually showing people how to build freedom, flexibility, and generational wealth through franchising. Meet Angie Yi, a second generation Asian American entrepreneur, mom, and franchise consultant with a heart for helping others, especially women and minorities, to thrive in business. If you've ever felt stuck in the corporate grind or wondered, hey, if there's another way, you're going to love this conversation. Angie, welcome to Hanging Out for a Living.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Teresa, so much for having me today.
And thank you for taking time out of your busy day for us. I appreciate it. Let's jump right in. So let's rewind to the beginning, shall we? What led you from corporate burnout to franchise consulting? And how did you know franchising was the right path for you?
That's a great question. So it actually wasn't corporate burnout necessarily, because I'm gonna start from the beginning, like you said, we'll rewind. So the first 15 years of my career was actually in retail operations and management, which I
Okay.
actually enjoyed very much. But once, I had my second child, working late evenings, holidays, and weekends was not going to work as a parent. So I had to pivot to a corporate 9 to 5, starting over, working my way from the bottom associate level up, which I didn't have a problem with at first because in retail you can go from sales to manager within a year, if you learn quickly, show you're capable, and even regional manager in 3 to 5 years. So I wasn't too concerned with starting over. Um, I was 37 at the time after having my second, so it wasn't, until my second year into the corporate associate role, I realized that raises are not given based on performance necessarily in
Sure.
corporate. And it seemed in order to even get promoted, it's basically a waiting list. Almost it felt like because an executive needs to quit or retire,
Mm.
on a team, or so the entire chain of command can move up one position. That's how I felt in this company
Sure.
that I was with. And even so, the associate level had so much turnover that, there really wasn't much opportunity to move up. So already being a parent, and the idea of waiting more than 5 years to actually start earning, a wage that would actually come close to matching my level of experience,
Sure.
was not acceptable. And on top of that, I felt like the corporate, environment was very, toxic. There was a lot of corporate politics, a lot of misogyny. It was enough for me to call it quits and start considering other opportunities.
Sure.
And the timing of that realization was perfect because I didn't just want another job at that point. I decided I had to do something that would give me a sense of purpose, and helping people in some way. And I decided to finally respond to a random LinkedIn message I had received a while, for maybe a few months before I decided to leave. And it was from the Franchise Brokers Association. And I initially ignored that message, but I figured, let me respond, schedule a call, and hear what this franchise broker role is that they keep suggesting I would be a good fit for. So I approached it with, much skepticism. But after having that call and conversation, I was really intrigued and wanted to learn more. And I realized it is very similar to being a recruiter, except I would be, connecting individuals with business opportunities, instead of job opportunities. So for many franchise brands. And I I wouldn't be incentivized to push a certain few brands. That I think there are many brokers that do that. So I liked the idea that I would have over, hundreds of brands to be able to represent. So I would, be training to really be an advocate for candidates and get to know them and to understand exactly what type of business would actually align with them. Because alignment between the franchisor and the franchisee is really what makes a business successful. And understanding, like, oh my gosh, if people knew, that this opportunity is available, than having to feel like that they're stuck in a career. Um, I felt like I would be helping so many people feeling the struggle of feeling stuck. And yeah, that's pretty much what made me decide to jump into this and really, and I love it so far. I love what I'm doing.
You're like a franchise matchmaker.
Yes, exactly.
So, which actually what you shared is a great segue into the next question. So, franchising isn't just fast food, right? You represent over 800 brands across 37 industries. Can you paint a picture of the kinds of opportunities people might be surprised to discover?
That's it's funny because most people automatically think of a food and beverage concept,
Yeah, I did
big
too.
fast
Yeah.
food. Yes, and they're usually, think Chick-fil-A or Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, these big names. But there are concepts that are much lower in investment that don't require a storefront, a build out, little to no employees, or late hours of operation. There's even categories that you would never think of. There's I'm going to name a few that's pretty random, and no one would think that there's a franchise for say pet waste management, um, crime scene cleaning. There's one for judgment collections. There's one for recovering addicts living community development. There's one
Wow.
for home visitation and family mediation. There's so many different kinds of concepts that people would never think, there are franchises for. So there's really so many opportunities, and a lot of people actually sometimes, speak to me thinking they're set on one type of category, and they end up actually being open and actually more interested in these other categories that they've never even thought of.
That is amazing. I would have never thought of like dog waste management.
Exactly.
I have to look one up and see if there's one in my area because I could use that service.
Right. Right.
Wow, amazing. So you use a science-backed tool to help match clients with the right franchises, right? And tell me, how does that work and what makes it so powerful for first-time business owners?
So it's a very powerful tool because, like I mentioned, the success of a business, it's mainly depends on the owner. But when it comes to franchising, there has to be a great alignment between the franchise owner and the franchise. And that alignment has to be there with the values, as well as something called the stage of growth. To know exactly what a person's business values are, where their competencies and skill sets are, and the state of growth will actually show, if they're more leaning more towards a entrepreneur partner type role where, they fit better with emerging brands versus, someone who needs a system laid out for them step by step, and rules that they have to follow, a clear direction. So those would fall, that type of person would fall under, a bigger company, an umbrella company with many different brands underneath. And so this science-backed tool, it's based on 5 different science-based studies, and it's a survey where, it's about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And once they take it, they'll see the results. And I use those results to really able to narrow down from hundreds of brands to know, which ones fit them, as well as the type of categories that they're most interested in. And it really narrows down the list to, I typically try to stick with no more than 8 brands,
Okay.
so that it's easier for them to choose from. And it really helps because a lot of people come in with a consumer mindset, rather than a business owner mindset. And they just think of categories and brands and companies based on, what they like
Right.
as a consumer, but not necessarily what type of business actually aligns with their skill sets and values.
Absolutely. So it takes a lot of the guesswork and the stress off
Mhm.
everybody all the way around and really lines them up for success.
Yes.
So you're not jumping into one thing and thinking, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into?
Right, right.
And that's what we all want to avoid. So wonderful. You're especially passionate about helping women and minorities build generational wealth. What are some of the barriers you see, and how does franchising help break them?
So, in especially after being, experienced that those 2 years in corporate,
Sure.
there's a lot of barriers, especially if it's a male-dominated industry. There's a lot of and as a mother, knowing, where you have to sometimes pause in your career and, feeling like it's hard to pick back up where you left off and
Sure.
being able to be, more flexible. Um, there's not, there's still companies that aren't as very flexible with, time where parents will have to, take days off
Sure.
for their kids to go to school for performances or, when their kids are sick. And usually it's the mothers that, handle that and have to really be the ones sacrificing.
Sure.
So, what's great about franchising, there's actually a lot of opportunities where they provide loans, particularly for women and minorities. There's franchises that actually offer a discount on franchise fees if you're a woman, a minority, or a veteran. So, which is great. And there's really so many women who thrive in the franchise industry. Because it's a proven model and a system that's laid out to follow, and really there's very low risk compared to a startup business where
Sure.
the failure rate with a startup can be as high as 80 something percent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But when it comes to franchising, it's the opposite. So, it's just a wonderful way for women to get into business ownership and be able to start, with a low investment and having, franchises that offer discounts towards women and minorities, which really help them start that generational wealth path that I think is so necessary, especially, this day and age where we all have to feel financially secure.
Right.
Um, so yeah,
It also gives them the flexibility, right? When a
yes,
child is sick or has a school performance or there's something going on. So it gives that flexibility.
exactly. As the owner, you obviously can hire, a manager to manage the business, which gives you a lot more freedom and time, to be really present with your family.
Absolutely. Well, Angie, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was packed with insight and inspiration. Friends, if something Angie shared sparked a new thought or really got you curious about what's possible outside the 9 to 5, don't let the conversation stop here. Her contact info is right in the video description, so go ahead and reach out. She's generous with her knowledge and truly loves helping others explore the world of franchising. And if you enjoyed this episode, drop us a comment below, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a chance to hang out with incredible guests like Angie. Thanks for hanging out with us again, Angie, and everyone who has tuned in. And we'll see everyone the next time. Bye for now. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.